All right. So good evening all, and thank you for coming again. And this is I believe the 10th time now that I've done a Zoom, and I keep thinking I'll run out of topics, but every week I go out and I'm with horses and with people, and I realize there's just so much more to talk about, and I think more clarity too as we get more familiar with this work and we start doing it and incorporating it into our lives, and we're seeing these things come up. And so tonight I want to talk about a few of those things, and I had a request here, and I'll get to that about a little more about imagination and imagining and all that mental um, imagery that is so very, very important with our horses, and it really makes a big difference in both our relationship and in the training of the horses. So I really want to touch on that here, and I'll try to keep an eye on the time. So again, I think it worked out really well the last time where I did about maybe half an hour of talking, and then we took some questions at the end, and it felt like it was more connected, which is what I love to do, as you know, connection. This week I had a talk, kind of like we called it a fireside talk, and it was with a group of ladies. There were four of us on a Facebook call, which was really interesting. And so it was from England and Canada, and it was just such a wonderful talk. And we spoke about connection and what it meant to us, and how we could incorporate that with our intuition and connection. And I'm hoping that I will have that recording available because I think you guys will really enjoy that, because it's perspective from people in different places that maybe have come together and we do the same sort of things, but just a slightly different perspective on it. And it was just so much fun. And I'm hoping we get to do more of those. And I think that will really work in well with, what I'm talking about on Monday nights with these Zoom meetings. So look for that, and I will get that posted if I can. And that will be on probably on my Facebook site. I don't know if I can put just audio recordings on YouTube. It seems like I think you have to do something to it, but anyway, I'll have it somewhere available for you. And okay, so Leslie put on video cameras off increases the bandwidth and makes the signal stronger, which is perfect. So we'll just, for the most part, keep our videos off until I stop the recording, and then afterwards we can do a little talk at the end, and everybody can turn back on so I can see you all here. Um, okay, so one of the big things that I wanted to talk about this week that I've come across, and I think it's interesting because I go and work with horses during the week, and then I think this is like rounds at the hospital when you're a resident and you come back and you talk about all the patients that you saw during the week, and you talk about cases, and you go over things, and why did this show up, what do you think we should do about that, and I kind of see this in that same light, that we come together at these times and go, wow, I observed this. Here's this case that I was on, and here's what I did, and here's what I observed. And if you come across something like that in the future, then maybe you can try the same things. And again, I'm working as well as you guys are working in that place of the internet of intuition, where I won't give you all the answers because I probably can't give you all the answers to every scenario you'll come across, but you're going to have enough that you're going to start to be able to figure some of these things out and just go with what you feel in your gut. And just in that place when you're with a horse and you're not sure what to do and you're thinking about it, it's always to check in and just pause. I love the pause, as you know, and the pause works in so many places in our life where if we're stuck with something and we pause, then we can often find the answer. So just know that if all else fails, pause. And so part of this thing that I was coming across this week with a lot of people calling me and asking questions was they would say, "Well, this energy worked really well. My horse was with me for a while, and Now it's not. Now it's leaving. Now it won't stay with me. And I've come across some cases where I kind of know what's going on in that, and it's a little bit hard to tell somebody. It's like you've just got too intense. You got way too intense, and you there's a part of this where it's very exciting when your horse starts connecting with you and all that, and then you start asking more, and then you start asking more, and the horse goes, "No, I don't like that," and they back off. And so if you're having that experience where it was good and now it's kind of falling apart, it's a good time to check in with yourself and see, do have I gotten too needy like with this and I'm asking way too much or I'm expecting way too much? And another thing that I noticed in the verbiage people have used when they've talked to me is I believe they use words that are associated with a lot of the liberty training, and I think liberty training is great. I I may be a little bit different in my approach to liberty training than some people because excuse me. It seems like a lot of the liberty training involves physical cues to the horse. uh, like you'll disengage the hind end and then draw the horse to you, like just like you would do in a round pen session where the horse stops and you disengage and then you back up as soon as the horse starts coming to you, and then you draw the horse to you. That's kind of what people were explaining to me about how they were doing liberty, and I thought that was different, way different than what I do. Way different. And what I'm doing instead of anything physical, I'm doing everything through emotional changes in my emotions, changes in my thoughts. That's what's drawing the horse to me or sending it away. I'm not, I could stand there and do absolutely nothing and not move at all and be able to get this horse to come or to go. Okay. And that's where this is almost like that kind of training on maybe on steroids where you had to do these physical things to keep the horse's attention, and now I'm saying no, the way you keep your horse's attention is through your energy and at each moment assessing what does that horse need energy wise, what would it seek if it wanted to connect with me, what would I create in my body that would cause that horse to want to be in my field around me. And I'm not thinking in that time, all I'm thinking about is producing that energy in my body, creating that in myself and in my breath. But I'm not necessarily saying calling the horse to me. Okay. So there's this big difference. Like I'm going to create the energy. The energy itself is going to bring the horse to me. I don't have to be going, please come draw, come up to me. I'm going to back up, come to me. No, it's very, very different. And this is where I talk about people now. It's like horses don't necessarily use language as we do. They think in terms of feelings, I believe, and they're seeking a feeling. And so if I can create a feeling in my own body that the horse is seeking, then it's going to be want to be next to me. And so I'm constantly going, what do I need to change in my emotions? And I had a session today and it was so wonderful because we used 3 different emotions during this session. And you remember last week where I talked about I had the dial and I could dial up an emotion to a stronger level, I could dial it back down. Okay? This time we had 3 different dials. What we did first was an energy of, I think we chose something like acceptance, acceptance for this horse. And he came to acceptance. But he didn't come initially, he came when the acceptance was, we accept you for who you are, where you are, and what you are in this moment, not with any kind of conditions placed on that acceptance. I'll accept you if you come to me, or I'll accept you for this, or like, no, it was like this purity of that acceptance, and that horse came over. And I said, okay, so now we're going to keep that running through our whole time that we have. So we dialed it up for a little bit. He came over, and now we're just going to let it go down to the simmer level. We're just going to turn that energy down, but it's still running. And then in each moment, we're going to pick another energy that he finds enticing. It's like, so maybe we want him to go with us and follow us. And so we may bring up something like happiness or joy. So we'll turn up that dial for a little bit. And then he'll follow us in that. Okay. And so I can't remember, we had another, geez, I've forgotten already which our third energy was for that session, but we were running three different ones and we could go back and forth between each one and turn one up and turn one down. And this is part of this training of ourselves as we become more and more sophisticated and more aware of our internal self, that we can begin to change our energy at a moment. And I call it energy fluency or emotional fluency, so that we have many different volumes to an energy and we have many different energies from which to choose from at any one moment. And that's really where we're working toward. And this is where, when you do liberty work in this way with emotional stuff, it's the connection you receive is so much stronger. And when you lose the connection, you know that you lost your focus on the emotion, or you lost that emotion in yourself and you weren't able to maintain it. And so you're having to turn it up again. Once you go back to that, you'll see the horse draw back and come back to you. And again, I'm not doing anything physical when I'm doing that kind of liberty work, because the horse is just there. And then you just use your thoughts. It's like, I would like, let's go do this. You make a picture of it, and we're going to get into more of that imagery. So I'll start making a picture. Now we're going to go here. Now we're going to go there. And always when I make that picture, I'm soft in my body. I'm checking in first. Was that a demand? Was that a need for the horse to come with me? Or is that just, it would be great if you come with me? I'm going over here. And I'm probably going to go over there next because I've made a picture of it and the horse is following all that. And this is getting into, we talked a little bit too about leadership. And I think liberty has been like, well, one person's a leader and they're doing this thing and they're directing this whole thing. And I was talking to this person about leadership and how, for me, all the leadership means is that that horse can count on me to be emotionally steady and to know where I'm going and what I'm going to do and to follow through with that. And the more I do that, the more that horse sees me as a leader, or maybe it sees me as someone to trust because it knows, like, okay, I've gotten that picture from her, I got the emotion, and she followed through on that. Dang, I can count on her every time to follow through. So if you think about your work now, if you're thinking about something you want your horse to do, check in first and see how soft your body is and how soft that request is, and then follow through. But not in a way of asking a question. Because I see people too, it's like they'll do liberty work or they'll be leading their horse and they'll say, okay, come on, you can come on. And they look back and I said, that's a question. You just asked a question because you weren't sure. When you're sure where you're going and what you're going to do, that horse just goes. And that's your key to know, am I being clear in my intention? Am I being clear in my pictures? Am I being clear in my emotion? Because if one of those is off, then the horse usually just will stand there and wait. It's like, no, I don't think you got it yet. Keep trying. Pretty soon you'll get it. I'm just going to wait here till you got it. And I'm finding that horses in that place of that soft ask is like they're very happy to go with me. But in that soft ask doesn't mean I'm a pushover. It means, you know what, horse? I'm going over here, and now I'm going over here, and now we're going to do this. And nothing is a demand. Nothing is you have to, and nothing is a question either. It's just a statement. I'm doing this. Now I'm doing that. And the horse is coming along. And what I'm seeing essentially is that people are having trouble with this because they're attaching too much need to a picture that they are going to do, or they're questioning whether or not the horse will actually do what they ask. And when you sit in that world of doubt, it's not going to happen because the horse can pick that up. And so this is very important as you're working and thinking about things. Anytime something doesn't work, if you ask the horse to do something and it didn't work, you have to take that pause again. That pause is the place where you're going to learn and where you're going to go back and look at what just happened and see if you can figure out what went wrong. Why didn't this work? Were you asking too much at one time? Did you not pause long enough for the horse to find your picture, realize what you were asking, and you were quiet enough that he goes, "Okay, there was no other static. Now I see your picture, and now I'll do what you ask." Okay, so what I'm seeing too in this whole deal is people aren't pausing long enough. They're like, "Well, I made the picture, now I'm going." And it's like, that's too fast. That's too fast. Slow down. Completely make your image in your mind. Make sure your emotion aligns with the image. Make sure your thoughts align with the image, and then go forward. Okay, so that is part of the problem because I'll see people and they'll go, okay, and I say, well, here, let's do this and this and this, and they're like, yeah, okay, and they just start going, and I'm like, did you need to stop and make your picture first. You need to pause long enough, because otherwise, how could you know where you're going that fast? And then we need to just pause. Okay, and that'll solve a whole lot of the problems and the things that are going on. And then also the very, very most important thing that I'm seeing is please don't put a need. The horse needs to come. I need to draw this horse to me. When people use words like that, then I know there's a need that they're looking for that horse to come to them. Um, I want to draw this horse to me. Oh boy. What horse wants to go, oh, I'm getting drawn in. I've been drawn in a lot of times, believe me. So I know how that feeling goes after you do that a couple times and things don't go well for you. So just pay very close attention. And all of this work that we do on ourselves is so that we become better horsemen and that we become more aware. And there's never a point in my life now that I regret the time that I spent to work on the internal part of me and to become very fluent in my emotional language and my thought language and my ability to visualize. And now that we're on that place of visualization, I will talk a little bit about that. Um, because Gail Simmons brought this up about she had reread my chapter on imagery and how helpful that was. And I've spoken about this before, and on Warwick Schiller's podcast, I talked about how important I believe mental imagery, visualization, whatever you want to call it, is. And especially not just with our horses, but in every aspect of our life. I use this tool so often for so many different reasons. I can't even begin to tell you all the places I can plug this in, and it makes a difference in the outcome of something that I'm trying to do. Um, so this imagining as if we were children again, and we have such a wonderful imagination when we're a child, and we're born with this ability to go, you know what, we're going to play this game, and you have all your friends there, and it's like, well, let's play this game, and we all decide who we're going to be, we get assigned, it's like, oh, I'll be the so and so in this, and I'll be this person, and I'll play this part, and I'll do this. And then you go about just playing. But it's not like you went down with your group of friends when you were a child and go, okay, here's the rules. Um, and here's the script. So make sure you follow the script and don't go off the script. No, it was all like improv. It was all that we could just think in the moment and go with the flow of what one person did, and then we did this, and then we did that. And I think of our time with our horses too. It's more like that improv where we're going to go play, but there's no hard rules. And when I do this and you do that, oh, it's like it begins like a dance, and then you play this game out, and it's beautiful. And you can have an idea of the game of what you're going to do, but to be able to stay in that place of flow is so important. And I think now, like, I'll get back to the imagination, but I think now of the times that I've ridden a horse, and all I've thought about is I want to seek a feeling, and the feeling is that I want to be in the flow of it. Everything feels really soft, and it just goes, and like then my whole body relaxes, and then I have like the most wonderful rides where whatever I thought then from that point, I just have to think about doing the next movement I wanted to do, and I put the feel of that in my body, and then it just would materialize, and without any real try on my part, and the horse seemed happy in that. But it's that ability to think about it, what you want in general, but then make it very fluid. So in the moment you can go, okay, now I'm going to create this next picture of what I want to do. And now we did that, and now I'll create the next one. And in this imagery here, as we're talking about it, I think when I was little, there was Walt Disney, and he had such an imagination, and all the I remember that as a little girl. It's like every whatever Sunday night when Wonderful World of Disney would come on, and it would be like all week long I'd be waiting for this show, and it was just like magic, and all these adventures and all these things that would happen, and it was his group of people that worked in his studio. They were called Imagineers, and I love that idea. It's like you blend this engineering, like we're going to do something, with your imagination and become an Imagineer. And this, I don't want to steal that from Walt Disney. I love that term, but I want to credit where it came from. But if we begin to be more Imagineers with our horses, where we have these technical skills we could get them to do, and we know what we want to do, we have writing skills and all that. But if we blend those with our imagination and our ability to create these mental images, then we can have things happen that are magic, just like in Walt Disney. It just seems so magical to me when I would watch it. It's like, wow, this is the greatest stuff. And so when we're thinking about our mental imagery, I've talked about this a little bit before about how everybody imagines in a different way. Some people are very visual imaginers. They can, like, my sister will tell me if we've done some guided imagery classes together, and she'll tell me it's like when I go into this imagery, when I close my eyes, it's like I see a movie playing out in front of me. And I'm like, "Really? Like a real movie?" And she goes, "Yeah, like a real movie, like it's all the detail of a real movie." And I think, "Gosh darn, I don't get that at all." What I usually get is just not black. That would be what I used to get, just black. And I'm thinking, "Wow, I just don't know how to imagine." And the more I tried to imagine, the harder it got for me to create any kind of picture. The blacker the blacker it got for me in front of my eyes. And so I had to go, and I finally went to somebody, and they said, there's different ways you can imagine. And I thought, really? There are? Because they call it mental imagery, and they call it pictures or visualization. And so I'm imagining that's the only way it can happen. And they go, no, maybe you imagine in a different way. I'm like, huh, imagine in a different way. And they said, just sit there and be quiet and imagine. I forget what they told me to imagine. And I'm like, oh, I imagine through feeling. I can feel the whole thing. I don't see a picture, but I can feel every single little nuance of what's going on. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? And some people can imagine just by, they may close their eyes and maybe they just hear, I don't want to say hear voices in their head, but maybe they hear something, and that's how they imagine. They imagine the voices of people talking in a situation, or they imagine the sound of their horse or something like that. And so there's many different ways we can imagine, and it's important as you begin to develop this skill. And this is something I'll go over when I teach a class on this, is that we're going to identify the way that we imagine first and go through and then start to develop that in a greater way. So we'll start with what we're good at, and then we'll start pretending like we can imagine that we see something, like in my case. And what's really interesting now is that I can just think something because I put my attention on it, that I wanted to develop my ability to see mental pictures, that now it's coming, but never, it probably will never be like my sister's, like a movie, but I can imagine and I get the thought or the idea of what the image looks like. It's not a clear-cut thing, but it's very real at the same time. And once in a while, I'll get a flash, like I'll go, I want to imagine, let's say I wanted to imagine where did I put my car keys? And I'll be thinking, where did I put my car keys? Where did I put them? And then the image of where I just put them is like a flash, and it'll go in my mind somewhere, and I'll see where I put my keys. So mine is very different. So as you're beginning to think about this imagery, just relax into it and let yourself go to a place where, how do I imagine? Does it come in pictures? Does it come in feelings? Does it come in sound? And it can be a bunch of different things. There's very few people. I've known a couple people that go, I taste everything. I'm like, you taste things? Like, that's another way to imagine, but that seems kind of odd to me that they go through their life with trying to imagine things through the way they taste. So I don't know. I think there's some horses now that I'm hearing like they taste everything and they're biting everybody. So maybe they're just imagining the world in taste. So um, let me see. I'm just going to look at one of these questions here because it came up here. Rose said the pause is finally working for her. Um, I was in a doubt bubble yesterday and it did not go well. I let other training get in my head. I was in and out and confused both of us. Okay. So that's a realization that yeah, those things like I was talking about, need comes in and can block our ability, but also doubt. Doubt is a huge one to block all of our progress with our horses, is when we doubt that something will happen. Okay, let's see. Let's see what else here came up. Okay. Walt Disney Imagineering, yes. Um, and yeah, perfect approach to clinics. And um, as far as learning how everybody imagines. And when we begin to notice how we imagine things, we begin to realize that everybody does it different. And so a lot of times what I have to do is figure out when I'm with someone with their horse, like, how does this person imagine? For me, like I said, I'm very kinesthetic, so I imagine everything through feel. And so I'm always trying to get people to heighten that ability to imagine through feel, because that is so important with your horse, to be able to feel what's going on. And also, feel comes in two different ways. It could be the sensory from your, like, what does my hand feel, or what does the temperature feel like? But it's also feelings, emotions. Can I sense what an emotion feels like in my body? Can I stop and imagine that? Um, so there's a lot of different things here. Likes to be close. Likes to be close. What emotion would you ask to distance her? Okay, so somebody was asking, okay, you bring your horse is too much in your space. This can be a lot of different things. So um, if your horse is too much on you, it could also be that the horse is a little bit insecure and wants to be in your space. And so if that was the case, you could send them an emotion of security and safety and that kind of thing, to have them make a little more distance from you. There's another way that I work with energy as I'm going around. And remember, I have the dial. and I'll dial up something, and it's like there was one horse, it's like I dialed it too much and he got overly excited. It's like, "Whoops, I gotta dial that down." And so I've gotta go through and say, "Okay, sometimes I don't want any connection to the horse whatsoever." Like, maybe I wanna break that connection a little bit or whatever, and I'll just kind of close off all of my emotions and pretend like there's a wall here between me and the horse. And I'll often do this in a clinic if I'm working with someone and I want them to connect the horse to connect with them, but the horse is 'cause I is trying to connect with me, and so I'll have to kind of shut my energy off, and this comes through some work. You can practice on this one. It's like, "How do I shut this off?" Well, I might imagine a little wall there that the energy can't go past, or I dial down everything and go into neutral. Neutral is 0 emotion about anything. It's just I'm in the space, that's all it is. So, that could be one way you can play with that one about how do you keep a horse in a different away from you if it's getting too much or if it gets too ramped up. So, you play with that. And all of these things are I'd like to give you absolutes on how to do something but there is no absolute because every horse is different and every person is different and every relationship is different. For example, I will have a different relationship with your horse than you have with your horse. And I try to stay out of that relationship, but as I'm working with you, I have to be a part of that. So just know that there are no absolutes in this training and in this way of doing, and it's requiring you to be a lot more flexible and a lot more thinking on your feet. Okay, so there are some things I can give you that are, yes, this is how it's done, or this is what I do. But there are other things that are much harder to quantify and say, here, do this, and this will always work, or do that, this will always work. No. And I think as I was talking, going back to that fireside chat I had with the three other women, is that we were talking about how we each have a slightly different way of doing things. And I think this is true as you get into this work. You guys will find a slightly different way than I do it, but it'll work for you and for your horses in the way that you are. Okay. Oh, it says the signal is weakening. Okay. So if anybody's on here, go ahead and turn off your videos because Leslie just said that the signal is less now than when we started here. So if you can help us out and turn off a video if you have it on, that will be great. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I didn't really get too much into Gail's question about imagining, but what we'll do here in this next bit is if you guys remember under reactions, you can raise your hand and you'll come up and you can ask a question. And Gail, you're more than welcome to ask me to clarify more as far as the imagination and what to do with that. I am working on my manual that goes with the book so that I will go into much greater detail on how we actually do visualization, what different applications there can be in your writing or in your daily life, and so we'll go from there in that point. Um, okay. So if anyone would like to go ahead and under the reactions part on the lower, more right-hand side of your screen there, you'll see a little round face with a plus, and that's reactions. And if you click on that, you'll see a place where you can raise your hand. That's a little hand, and go ahead and do that if you'd like to ask a question. Okay. And I think you'll come up on my screen if you do. Okay, all right. It just says Galaxy X10, so I don't know who this is up here. I'll go ahead and click and um, I'll ask you to unmute here and you can go ahead and ask your question and just tell us your name since you're not Galaxy S10e, I'm sure.
Yep. No, I don't know how to get my name on my phone. Hi, Susan. This is Allison. Actually, I'm going to have a session with you tomorrow with
Oh,
my
great.
mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, but I do have a question because I've been experimenting a lot. And okay, I know I'm supposed to visualize and how something's going to happen. And now when I go out there, I'm supposed to have the intention and send that feeling to
Mm.
the horse. Reading on one of the posts in Facebook group about sometimes you just hold the space, talking about just holding the space, not sending a feeling. So, do I send the feeling or the intention only one and then for their times? Because what happens is, and you'll see tomorrow, they do this, I call it processing. The eyes are quite a while. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do at that time. Do I just
Okay.
stand there? Do I just
Okay.
an explanation of, I guess, holding space compared to sending an intention?
Okay. That's a good one. And this
Is
is
that
one where,
if I'm asking
um,
correctly?
oh, I think I got it. So if I don't, you can chime back in here in a second, and I'll see what I can do to answer that, because I think this is a common situation. And it's funny how, when you've done this kind of work for a long time, you kind of take for granted that here's how this works, and um, here's what I do. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, the nuances of this are so incredibly complicated to explain. But I will do my best here on this question. So the difference I think you're asking is, when do you send something? When do you just hold space? How do you know to pause for if the horse is processing something? So I'm going to start with this part of, let's say you've gone out there and you've done some emotion, and then you see this thing like you're talking about, Allison, about all of a sudden the horse kind of does the zone out look, and then it starts blinking, and then maybe it starts having releases. I do not ask anything of the horse during that process. When I see that starting to happen, it's important that I don't interrupt that, especially in this initial part of us gaining this trust from the horse and starting to do this connection. I'll let that whole process go through and I'll wait. Okay. And so that's the time I'm holding space, is during this time when I saw that reaction and I see this process starting. And then what I'll do is whatever that emotion was that precipitated that reaction from the horse, I'll see if I can hold that in my body and ask nothing of the horse during that time. I'm just there supporting, and I may say something, you can let it go, or you can release that if you're ready. I'll say something like that or think that during that time. And then pretty soon the horse will come back. It's like, oh, okay. So this gets into being able to also read, when is a horse ready to do something, is in a prime state of mind to ask him to do something, or is it a little checked out or going in some other, the brain's in some other space. Okay, so this is us knowing what is what. And if I look at the horse and I see that zoned out look, I know that, okay, some uh maybe dopamine's getting released. I'm going to wait that out and see what happens. What I want to see is, like, sometimes a horse gets too sleepy after that. And so if I'm watching that horse and I see it go through that phase where it did the blanks and now it's kind of half-mast, I'm not gonna go in and go, "Okay, now we gotta do this." I'm going to try to gently bring that horse's energy up a little bit and go, "Now we're gonna ask something of you, okay?" So I'm gonna pause enough that I go, "Okay, we're gonna do something," and I'll, in that time when I'm thinking that, I'm creating that picture. What do I wanna do? Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna ask this horse? So I've sent him that, so he has time to process. Then I'm gonna go through and ask it, but only when he comes back out of that kind of dreamland place. Because if if I've seen this happen where horses are like, they're in the dreamland and all of a sudden the person's like, "Yeah, we're going here," and you didn't listen. It's like, "Oh my god, that horse was, like, half asleep, and then it got startled out of that," and that has to be the most bizarre kind of place to be. It's like you're half asleep and then somebody's like, "Come on, there's you got to get up." And there's that disorientation part where, like sometimes you've been asleep at a hotel or something and you wake up and it takes you a minute. You're like, "Where am I? Where am I doing?" And I think that might be the same thing the horse is doing. So we're watching the eyes and we're watching to make sure that horse is in that state of mind to go through with the request that we're giving out. And sometimes if they haven't listened to that request, it might be that they're in the wrong brainwave state, that they've become too relaxed, or they're either too relaxed or too much in the sympathetic in fight or flight to be able to actually perform what we're asking. So it's really important. This is the really good part of the observation is we have to know where is that horse at and ask at the appropriate time for something to happen. So um, let me see if I got you could I'm gonna ask you to unmute again and see if I answered that or there some more part of that question that you need to have answered here.
Yeah, it's helpful for me to know. You'll see tomorrow with my mare, um, because sometimes it feels like she doesn't come out. And actually, the other
Okay.
day, I just walked away. I sat down on the ground and then down, really snored. Like
Okay.
was out, and I sat there praying to get everything. I said, I'm not moving. But my gelding, he's a little bit different. He'll come out of it, um, but sometimes it takes a while. 5, sometimes 10 minutes, and I don't know. I didn't know what I'm supposed to do at that time. I know I'm not supposed to. I try to just hang out, just be.
Right.
But
Right.
it'll give me with it.
And
I just didn't know what I was supposed
And this is a good question, and it's like a lot of what I've been doing initially here is that we've been getting horses into these super relaxed states because for the most part people are having trouble with horses that are too anxious. So we've gone almost to the extreme of the other end of this where they're almost too relaxed sometimes and so we need to then begin to get more sophisticated in our dial and go, "Oh, I dialed him down too much. I need to keep it here." So we'll work on that one, and I think this will be a great one to come back the next time we have one of these and report on what happened with your horse and how we address this. Because until I see it in the moment, it's very hard to say, "Here's what I would do." And again, this gets back to that thing like I wish I could give you a hard answer for here's exactly what I would do in this situation. It's going to depend on the horse, how they react to the next thing I do, and how they react to the thing I do after that. And then I have information. Um, but this is this is we're kind of in this uncharted territory where I think we haven't gone a lot into this kind of training because it again it requires us to be thinking and to be knowing about a lot of different things about the horse. Okay, here's the optimum place where this horse is learning, and we can see it through the eyes, through the body, and all that. And we don't ask in these states, but how do we get it out of that state if she went too deep? So there's all these little nuances, like I said, and this is that game that we play right now. Is like, how are we going to work with this particular horse? Okay, and how are we going to keep her in that state of mind for learning or for doing something? And this will be a lot of fun. And all of this is as you get this and you work with more and more horses, you realize, oh, that's kind of like that other horse I did. And so I think I'll try this thing with her. And yeah, it works, or no, it doesn't. And so you're always having to go back and go, wonder what to do now. And that's why I think I absolutely love this work because I'm one of those people that is always wanting something that's like challenging. I'm always looking for the challenge. And it's like this kind of work challenges my mind to go, can I think on the fly? Can I come up with something in the moment that's presenting that I've never seen before? Or I haven't seen exactly that before. And then I have to go back and try to go, I think I remember doing this with this horse and it worked there, but let me tweak this a little bit. So I think, again, this is a great question, and we're going to come back and let's make good notes on our session tomorrow about what we do with your horses. So that's probably the best. I mean, I wish I was like some of the other, like, yes, we do this and this is what we do, and they're very firm and it's like, yeah, there's no other question about it. No, this one, there's so many questions about this, and I wish I could be everywhere and go, here's what I would do, here's what I would do. And sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do, and I have to pause. I have to pause until the idea comes to me. And so let's just go with, we all are in this learning place, in this different type of training, because a horse is always going to present something new to us. And I think it's great. I think we're going to become such more informed horse people and much more sensitive, not only to horses, but to our human relationships and our humans that are in our lives. So great, great question, Allison. Thank you. And I'm just excited now because I won't lose any sleep though. I'll be going, this is going to be fun. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go to Pam. Pam is next up here. Yep, there we go. So we'll meet you here. I think I
Hello,
can meet.
I'm practicing.
Hi, Pam.
Hello,
Hi.
can you hear me?
I can. I can.
Hello, what is the maximum number of horses that you would include in your energy bubble thought processes when you're working with a herd, or is this just more effective with an individual?
That's a really good question too, Pam. I find that I don't really have a max number of horses. Like if you've got a large herd of horses, I feel like that conversation can happen with all of them at the same time, because I used to have, I think I had 20 some horses at one time out in the field, and I would go out and it was almost like the conversation, everything comes in and out of the conversation, and you can interact with all of them at the same time. And I don't see any change in that. If you can connect with one, you've connected with all of them, or you may see one that kind of holds back, and then you can see what you want to bring in for that. But it's it's a lot of fun to do a big herd of horses. And I think last time I talked about doing, well, actually it was funny because we had two people and one horse, and we were doing some liberty type of work. And it was funny because I thought, oh, well, this horse is going to only connect with the owner, and how am I going to disconnect and connect with him? Will he do it? And it was really fun because the horse in that situation with two people and one horse, it's like what I was talking about earlier about shutting off that energy. It's like I would have the horse connect, and then um, I would say, okay, I'm going to hand him off to you, to the other person, and he's going to connect with you. And I shut my energy off. It's like I shut the flow of it off, and then he went and connected with her, and then went around with that. And then when he came by, I turned it back on. I turned the dial back up, and then he connected to me again. But I think the same happens with on the other flip side with the horses, that you can connect with number of them. I don't know if there's a max number or not. I've never tried that. Um, but yeah, I think it's no different. You just go out, and what I would do in those situations where I have a lot of horses is I would put myself in a particular energy and hold that one in myself and watch them interact with me within that one energy. And maybe if I saw one horse lagging or not wanting to, I might direct my attention toward that horse and see if it wants to join in. But I've seen several horses, I've had a group where we worked around, and the horses just kind of hang around like they're just like a person. They will stand between the people and just be there, and like they're interacting in that group conversation. It's really interesting. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have a large group of, or large herd, Pam?
Well, I
Oops.
go out to the herd of 8
Okay.
group, and I find there are some that uh, are timid, but they feel safe.
Mhm. Okay. And yeah, I think with
But it's
I
all
mean,
great fun. I thank you so much.
oh, it is. Isn't it great fun? And that's why I think again, when I want to say, I'm one of those people that loves challenges and loves to observe and learn new things. And I just find that this work is so enriching in that way because we're really having to become very complex in our ability to notice, in our ability to notice not only outside of ourselves, but inside of ourselves, and to be able to change at any moment. So that's great. Okay, so I will go on to Aletha, and you can go ahead. I'll ask you to unmute and tell us who you are and what's your question.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I am
Hi,
great. How are
everyone.
you doing?
I am good. I wanted to, as you know, I told you before, I do equine therapy, so my connection energetically is very important with the horse that
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to teach me. Um, in this particular instance, I connected with the horse, and all of a sudden, I felt like my legs needed to give out. So the horse had so much. I want to say this because it's funny because I think I set my intentions were set, and then I had this question has fear, but I
Okay.
didn't think about that. But it showed up with the horse. The horse actually showed me how it felt, and the only way I could stand up was to shake. Uh, Common, or or maybe I'm just imagining thing, but that was a really powerful display of connection that the horse wanted to try to explain to me what it felt like to be in fear. But last week I went to therapy, and uh, originally two horses that should have worked with me didn't want to because they had just moved. There were already four horses that were stable and residents, and they actually had a little discussion about me. The two horses that should have talked to me said they went up. Two of the horses went up to them and said, "What's up with her?" And then they went over and told the other two horses. And so two of those four horses decided to work with me. And I, my in my treatment, um, tend to freeze up, and I didn't really know what that felt like. And as I froze, the horse immediately tried to. It made me snap out of my freeze mode. Um, and one of the things that the horse told me, assertive, because when she did that, I said no, and my bubble got big. Because I've been reading your book, and you talk about bubbles and explaining to them how to keep space. And so as soon as I established that bubble, it was really good. But for me, trying to learn how to get out of the freeze mode this was an incredible connection. I don't know if anybody's experienced such strong connections, but it's almost, for me, feels almost too much.
Okay. And that can happen too. So it
So I
feels
guess my
like,
question
oh, go ahead.
is, do I need to be careful about connecting too much, or should I establish my bubble so much I'm human?
Yeah. And this is a really good question because I'm more of a physical empath a lot of times, and so I will um, often. It used to be I would walk up to the horse and just get overwhelmed by something, whether it was emotional or physical, and so I use that same technique that I talk about with the emotions is I now have a dial in my imagination. Okay, dial that down. I don't want quite as intense of information. I don't need it to be that loud. And so now it's almost like I can dial it down and I will get a slightest because I've taught myself to be very in tune and feel anything in my body, and I do that scan of my body before I start so I know if there's anything in me that I need to be aware of. And then if there's not, then when I walk in with the horse and all of a sudden I get a pain somewhere, I get a feeling sensation somewhere, I know it's not mine and I can attribute it to the horse. And so it's almost like I've given my body the directive, please dial down. I don't need that much information. I just need a little bit to know, okay, there's some pain there that I maybe pay attention to, or this is going on. So you might play with that one instead of like working at it in the terms of the bubble. You might think of it in terms of the dial and saying, I don't need so much. I'm
Okay.
okay. It's safe,
Thank
but
you so much. That's good.
this is really interesting though when you talk about when we start doing this work and the connection and when the horses feel safe with giving us this information, whether it's theirs or ours. And I always find like, thank you for sharing that because it may be the only human that's ever acknowledged that they have pain somewhere, that they can try to send that signal out and we receive it and we acknowledge, wow, I'm sorry you have pain there. Let me see what I can do to help you. And that is a huge um, trust and relationship building thing when we can begin to acknowledge what they're feeling. Oh my gosh, the bond becomes so much stronger with the horse. And I think that's what a lot of times when I walk in with a horse, and that's the very first thing is like I'll get there and they'll go, hey, my shoulder hurts back here, right behind my withers. And I'll go in and do some kind of release on that. And it's like, oh, that's like instant bonding. It's really cool. And so, I think just go ahead and as when we start developing these things and we start noticing, it's like at first it has to come to us like really loud or we don't hear it and we don't notice. And then as you keep going, okay, I acknowledge that. Thank you. Thank you. I acknowledge that. And a lot of times the horses, like you're saying, they will give us what we need. I'm always thinking we're going in there and helping the horses and we're doing something like that. But there's been times where I've done something, I do a thing where I'll move energy through the horse or show them if they're really stuck and I'll put my hands on. I very rarely put my hands on a horse, but sometimes I'll do it just to show them here's how to move energy. And I had done that with one horse. He was really stuck. His body was really cold. And I just wanted him to know, like, move energy through. Here's how it would feel. Just move it through. And then I went there a few weeks later. I put my hands on his rump and to do that, and he sent me a jolt like, oh, okay, you got it. It was like this given, like, thank you for doing that for me. And now I'm going to give you a little bit of feeling. And it was so wonderful. It's like, it's so warming of your, heart when they voluntarily give you something in return. And I think that's so much fun. So lovely what you're doing. Keep it up. And, just know you got it and paying attention and noticing and all those wonderful things you already do. And it'll be great. So, all right, I'm
Thank
just
you
going to
so
take,
much.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, I'm just going to run through and see if there's any other big question here. And if not, I'm going to go ahead. We're right at 6:30, so that's perfect because I wanted to do an hour and that's where we got. And again, I want to talk more about that visualization, but it may be in the form of a class. I'm not sure yet because there's just so much. And then tonight I felt like I was kind of a little bit all over the place in a lot of things that I was talking about, but um, we will get to more on that because it's so critically important. Okay. So, yes, we're just talking about the pause, more people on here. So please remember, I think the theme for the week is if you thought you paused long enough, pause some more and just wait it out with your horses and um, answers will come for you in the pause also. So thank you all very much. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here for tonight. And I won't be here next week because I have a clinic in Rifle, Colorado, and I'll probably be um, traveling on Monday unless I get home in time. I don't know yet, but um, I will put an announcement. I probably won't be here for next Monday. So anyway, just keep doing what you're doing because I'm so motivated and inspired and all those things by everyone's posts on my site and what they're doing and how great they're doing. And as we see, sometimes we struggle, and we're all there on that side to help, if you're having struggle, to help that it's just temporary. A lot of times we think, oh, well, it's all rosy now. We know how to do this. No, you'll still hit those little road bumps and places where you don't know what to do, or you feel like you're going backwards a little bit, but just know that's part of the process, and just stay on the course. And believe me, after doing this course for a long time, being on this energy place and going this direction, like I said at the beginning, I have never once regretted the amount of time I spent, because now it just makes everything in my life so much different and so much easier. So until I talk to you again, thank you guys so much, and I will see you the next time I'm on. So take care. Thank you, everybody.